You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, this morning in Atlanta, the group Higher Heights, they, of course, have endorsed Senator Kamala Harris. It's a group of 90,000 black women across the country who are involved in politics and other issues. Well, they held a power breakfast this morning at the Westin Hotel. We were there. We live streamed the entire event. Here is a roundup of what was discussed.
What we have is a situation where in 2013, the United States Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. And immediately thereafter, at least 24 states started passing through their state legislatures laws that were specifically designed to suppress the black vote. And in some areas, the Latino vote, in some areas, the Native American vote, in some areas, students from voting. And to the point that we'll all remember in North Carolina, the Court of Appeals said that that state had written a law that with surgical precision were the words that were used in the Court of Appeal review was designed to suppress the black vote. So the challenge that we have in activating folks to vote is a very real one, because there are historical and current institutional barriers that have been designed to suppress black folks from voting, including what has happened here in Georgia around the purging of the voter rolls. So what do we do about that? Well, we need to litigate. We need to support the ACLU. We need to support all of the folks who are doing the work on the ground to fight against that. But we're going to also have to support, our faith-based community, our nonprofit organizations that are helping people get around the obstacles to voting so that they register to vote and they have the willingness and the support to stand in line while they otherwise have to work 2 and 3 jobs to vote. We also have to deal with the misinformation campaign that is what is the Russian interference. That is real. So I am well aware of the challenge before us. I am well aware of the challenge in that there were a lot of people who put heart and soul into the idea that we would have the first woman president, and the disappointment that still lingers from that night in November of 2016, where people who worked so hard on that campaign have been saying, maybe America's not ready. I am well aware of the challenge before us, but here's where I stand on this. There is nothing we have ever achieved that has been about progress that came without a fight. And in particular, black women know that. And we know, because we are always deep of faith, and in our ability to know that we can see what can be, unburdened by what has been, and when we believe and have faith that it is possible, we make it happen.
And I do just want to shout out, I'm sure all of you have seen him, but I just do want to shout out Roland Martin, who's over there in the corner, who owns his own platform and keeps...
And he's sitting next to my sister, Maya Harris.
Yeah, I didn't even see you, Maya.
Who broke her foot.
Maya had quite the escort last night. Rosario Dawson wheeled her out on the floor. It was a beautiful scene. But I just want to say Roland does keep a lot of the issues that we don't hear in mainstream media. He keeps them at the forefront. So thank you for that, Roland.
Yes,
and thank you
does.
for...
Yes, he does.
Like in 6 places. All right, folks. Let's go to our panel with bringing in Robert Patillo's attorney, who's also out of Atlanta. I didn't have it there. I'm going to get the clip in a second. But Congresswoman Marsha Fudge, she spoke first, and she said we need to stop with attacks on black people who are prosecutors. She said because there are black prosecutors who are out there who are doing the right thing. She said, I was a prosecutor. She said, I put people in jail. She said, but I also kept a whole lot of people out of jail. And she talked about Senator Harris's alternative sentencing program that she had there as district attorney in San Francisco and the effect it had on people's lives as well. And so that was something that she really emphasized. And she also said that, look, she said it's a whole bunch of people who are running. And she said, and if all things being equal, hell yeah, I'm going to support the black woman who's running.
Hey, I'm there. I think, Marsha Fudge is like literally one of my favorite people to talk to because she's blunt, she's to the point, she's no nonsense, she's really top shelf. But one of the other things that keeps people out of jail is really good defense attorneys. And our political system rewards people who brag about throwing people in jail and locking people up and throwing away the key. That's what the Nixon era and the Reagan era of over-incarceration ushered in. I mean, Marsha Fudge, I'm sure, is right. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a prosecutor, so I'm sure she has a really good point. I'm sure she was a very good prosecutor because she's been really good at everything else she's done. But I have to say, given some recent experiences, not personal to me, but some friends that have been going through some things, I've had a renewed respect for defense attorneys, because if you have a good defense attorney and you have somebody who really believes in that representation, it's a huge factor.
But the reality, Greg, is that, look, first of all, you need defense attorneys, but yes, you also need black people who are operating as prosecutors. Look, you've got people right now who are going after that district attorney in Mississippi who has tried repeatedly to throw black people off of juries. Case went to the Supreme Court. You have the case, of course, the guy in Texas, where you've had prosecutorial misconduct from DAs as well. You need to have black folks in all levers who are judges, who are DAs, who are defense attorneys, because that impacts the criminal justice system. You look at this new wave of prosecutors because people are now realizing you can't just ask Washington, D.C. to change what's happening. No. So you've got Kim Foxx in Cook County in Chicago, Aramis Ayala, Marilyn Mosby. You have folks all around the country. I met the sister in DeKalb today. I'll show the picture. She's a district attorney there in DeKalb, black woman. And so these things are real. And so to act as if that somehow is a negative, that is wrong. Examine somebody's record, full record, but to start off by saying, oh, black DA, I don't like it, to me it's a bad idea.
No, absolutely, and it's been a bad idea for a very long time. I mentioning during the break, Kurt Schmoke, who was the dean of Howard Law School for a long time and was the state's attorney, youngest state's attorney in the history of Maryland, had been saying this for close to 2 generations. And it was Kurt Schmoke who began floating the idea of decriminalizing drugs very early on. And this, of course, he caught a lot of ire. He was very young. And, it's been 2 generations now between a young Kurt Schmoke and Marilyn Mosby now in Baltimore and in Maryland. And so ultimately what we're faced with is the fact that our institutions need to begin to continue to expand the number of young people who decide to go on to the prosecutor side. I see it every day at the law school at Howard. A number of young people who are saying we want to be on that side because we can intervene very differently. And so ultimately, as you say, it's one thing to have a demographic checked off. Well, we got some black and brown people on that side. It's quite another thing to have the right mentality, the right training, the right background. And ultimately, finally, and we see this to your point, Lauren, a lot of the greatest defense attorneys started out as prosecutors and DAs. So why not go on that side to find out what they do, and then if you want to switch sides, you can.
Well, first of all, we've had Monique Presley, we've had Scott Bolden, and others on this show as well. Yodita Welde, Robert Patillo, you're an attorney. But the point of this breakfast was mobilizing these black women. And one of the things one of the other speakers on that panel said to them is that they must be utilizing their network not just to get people to vote, but also to fund candidates. They said that, look, we can sit here and talk all day about the need for more black women in politics, but the sister said, if you don't fund the campaigns, you're not going to get them.
Congressman Fudge's point, it's not simply that she's a prosecutor people are criticizing, it is her record as prosecutor that people are criticizing. Like, I'm on the board of directors for the National Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys. I've done over 100 jury trials right there in Atlanta, Georgia, primarily, where you can have prosecutors who have discretion, who have restorative justice, who understand how to charge, when to charge, and where to charge. So I think it's a bit disingenuous to say that Kamala is just being criticized because she was a prosecutor. It is the nature in her record as prosecutor, which is fair game for scrutiny. Now,
well, no, I've actually dealt with some people who said, I've had to deal with people who said, I can't trust anybody who's a prosecutor, and I said, that's nuts. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, you have Keith Gamage right there in the Solicitor General of Fulton County. You have Sherry Boston, who you mentioned in DeKalb County. There are great prosecutors. I think people need to understand that when your house is robbed, when you are a victim of crime, that prosecutor needs to be on your side. But it is fair game to keep that record, to make that record public, and to understand if you were indeed on the side of restorative justice and not simply the lock them up, throw away the key prosecutor. Because effectively, many crimes have been decriminalized for white people for years. As long as you got money and a good attorney, marijuana has been legal for rich communities for a long time. It's just filtering down to us, and we have to ensure that our prosecutors going forward understand that and understand the nature of discretion. On the point of funding campaigns, they're absolutely correct, but we need to have candidates who are bold enough to issue policies that will get Black folks up and motivated and ready to open their checkbooks and ready to mobilize. You can't simply say, I'm here for Black people. Joe Biden last night said, I'm from the Black community. Pete Buttigieg said, I'm a gay man. I understand Black people. We need them to actually have articulable policies that make us want to hop up, get out in Obama 2012
But
numbers.
Robert,
otherwise, you're not going to see that same mobilization.
But Robert, and I'll be honest with you, what was driving me crazy sitting on the floor last night, it also means moderators must stop asking open-ended ass questions that don't have anything to do with policy. I was sitting on the floor going, where's the policy? Where's the policy? Where's the policy? Okay, and when the question was asked of Buttigieg, where's the policy? That's what was bugging me, and that's also part of the problem. If you ask somebody in open-ended conversation, how do we bring people together? Hell, that ain't policy.
Right.
And that's what happens.
And on that exact same note, not only are they not asking about policy, they're giving people an immediate out. They asked Elizabeth Warren about white supremacy. She started talking about illegal immigration. We need to have moderators, and we need to have as you were saying earlier, we need to be sponsoring these debates to ensure that if you're coming to Atlanta, if you're going to be on Campbellton Road, in the squats, down the street from the AUC, and y'all want to shout out Maynard Jackson and John Lewis, you better well hell have shouted out a bunch of policies you were going to do to honor their legacy. This is not a game of trivial pursuits where you want to name as many Black people you can think of from Atlanta. We want to know what you're actually going to do. And also, we have to understand that the same way that Elizabeth Warren issued a plan to pay for her Medicare for all, I need a plan, not just your belief system. If you say you support reparations, what's your plan for reparations? If you say you support child care for the African American community, key in on that. We can no longer just simply sit by and assume that the Black folks are going to vote for Democrats at 95%, because just 2 weeks ago, President Trump was in Atlanta with his Black Voices for Trump event. You can continue to say it's a clown show. Those people are a joke. He is coming for the Black vote, and he only needs to skim about 20% off of what Democrats traditionally get in order to win in a landslide. So keep playing this little sideshow game. Keep just doing photo ops with fried chicken and hot sauce bottles, and you will see what will happen in 2020.
But Greg, what has to happen, I think we're going to be seeing this, and that is this here, funding our own initiatives. And what the sister was saying there was that we have to fund our own initiatives. And she was calling on these Black women to utilize their networks to begin to pull those resources together. That is also what's critical. Again, saying how powerful the Black vote is means nothing if you don't have the dollars to be able to go into communities, mobilize them, first of all, register them, then mobilize them and move them to the polls come Election Day.
Absolutely. I mean, Roland, one thing you've done consistently, wherever platform you have been in, including this one, is highlight the work of Black women who have been doing exactly that, registering women, voters, organizing, doing think tank work like Melanie Campbell and the Women's Roundtable. I mean, ultimately, this isn't an American phenomenon. This is a world history phenomenon. Black women, and in a minute you're going to have another very powerful Black woman on the international stage in this conversation. Black women have been doing networking since they've been human beings. So this isn't just good politics. This is really a kind of a natural outgrowth of the way our culture has organized. The Black church, at the root and the foundation of it, was Black women organizing. No matter if a man was the preacher. And when we heard Dr. Whitehead talk about Ella Jo Baker or Septima Clark or Fannie Lou Hamer, these aren't just individual figures in history. They're representative of networks of Black women. So absolutely, resources should be put in the hands of those who have proven what they can do when they have limited resources. So Black women, of course, should be the foundation, not just of our politics, but ultimately, if the Democratic Party was smart, they would absolutely ground their work in the work of black women.
Lauren, black women hate the Republican Party more than anybody else. Republicans will tell you that. And so everybody obviously is focused on that. But I think that what you're seeing is that, and you're going to see more of this, Higher Heights, they're doing some stuff for Harris in South Carolina. The group of black women who endorsed Senator Elizabeth Warren, they're doing that. In fact, I just saw a video there of folks doing swag surfing on the campus of Clark Atlanta University at the Elizabeth Warren rally there. That was pretty interesting.
Was she
the video that I saw. Did she participate? Not sure if she did, but we're going to see it in a second. But so again, I think what is going to happen is, and because we just saw this in Louisiana, black folks were driving those numbers. This got also overlooked. There have been some places in Mississippi where they've beaten Republicans because you're seeing that turnout as well. And I think at the end of the day, Reverend Barber has been saying this. What Democrats have to understand is you will never be able to get people to turn out if you never go talk to them. And you got to be able to go to those places and work them in order to get them to come out and vote.
I disagree a little bit, only because of Virginia and Kentucky. Virginia and Kentucky, it's not that, I'm not saying there wasn't a voter mobilization effort.
No,
of course
there
there was. But your best GOTV was actually Donald Trump in those two places. We saw unprecedented turnout in Virginia that was matching the gubernatorial turnout.
No, Donald Trump was not the best GOTV. Here's the piece. No. Donald Trump can piss you off. But what you had is
anger is a good motivator.
No. You can be angry, but you also have to have people who are knocking on doors, who are making phone calls, who are there with their clipboards, who are there getting you registered. I mean, folks are not just automatically saying, okay, I'm just going to go vote. What happened there? I mean, I'm telling you, last night in Atlanta, I talked to Cedric Richmond. He said in my congressional district alone, we increased the turnout by 43,000 votes.
Right.
He said that was a plan. That wasn't, hey, y'all, let's get rid of Trump. And when I was talking to Reverend Barber, he talked about the number of times they went into Kentucky.
Right.
They went into places. The same thing, and talking to Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright, the places where they went. But a year before the election in Virginia, that Black Voters Matter bus was traveling throughout Virginia, and they were. I'm trying to tell you, they were. I mean, so again, we can say Donald Trump, but you still have to have groups that are going into places, who are training people to register people, and not just register them, but you still got to move them to the ballot box.
We've had groups, and we definitely have groups in Virginia. I mean, I work in politics in Virginia and in New York, and I'm telling you that in 2017 we saw that first wave in Virginia, and we go back to, say, Obama.
But people didn't just turn up.
Those lines wrap around the corner for a reason, usually a really good candidate or really stiff opposition.
But
I'm not saying there's not a voter turnout effort. I'm saying, though, that what we see with this historic... We see this historic level turnout, particularly in a place like Virginia. We didn't see it before. A lot of that is Donald Trump.
But even if you go back to Obama winning North Carolina in 2008, about 14,000 votes, you can say it was because Obama was on there, but you had people though who were doing the work to mobilize. Again, the problem it keeps making is that there's the election. No, there's the election in November. Then there's the primary. Before I can even get you to vote in the primary, I got to get you registered. Right now, last night, Stacey Abrams left the debate and went to their call centers because her organization, they are going down the list and calling almost 300,000 people who are on the list to be purged to say, make sure you don't get purged. If that work isn't done, you can be motivated to vote against Donald Trump, and guess what? You show up and realize, I've been purged. Robert Patillo, you want to jump in right here? Then I'm going to go to Greg. Go ahead.
You know, Georgia is my territory. I've been to all 159 counties working on election campaigns. And the issue is we still have over 500,000 unregistered African Americans in the state. And part of the reason is, particularly in the South, you have Democratic parties that are still mainly run at the top levels by white Dixiecrats. And they would rather have the state run by white Republicans who they get along with than cede the state over to Negro control. And so for that reason, it is crucial, exactly what you were saying, that we hit those streets, we hit those jurisdictions, we get people registered, we get them motivated, and we not be afraid to campaign to them on issues that they care about. We have to. We can't go into the churches and not bring a holy message with us as candidates. We cannot go into the barbershops and into the grocery stores and the nail salons and not be talking about things that people actually want to hear. Just saying I hate Trump is not enough to win if though Hillary be the president right now.
No,
Greg.
I would agree, and again, you've been saying this over and over again, particularly about the Democratic National Committee. At some point, you're going to have to commit to the people who have not only been the base of that party, but whose politics are going to drive the future of this country. I think about one of my friends, Adjua Asamoah, who helped push the Crown Act, the Natural Hair Act. Watching her with these young millennials, I realized that, you're right, Lauren, you have to have an attractive candidate, and a lot of these attractive candidates, these young candidates, are at the local levels. There's a lot of black women running for these local offices, city council, and just watching how they're networking and beginning to emerge, you see these black women driving this conversation, but the DNC, or whatever political formation, needs to understand that this is where the resources need to go.
Which is why I'm making the point that also you cannot simply wait on a party.
Yes.
What also has to happen, when I called out black media, you must have black folks who are pooling their resources and say, we're going to fund our own voter registration drives, because what happens when it comes to who wins determines what our politics is.
Yes.
Donald Trump this week is going to get their 50th judicial appeal judge. They last night, according to Benita Gupta's, they moved 8 more people through.
My God.
They want to, and I keep telling people,
That's it, man.
it's all about the judicial pieces.
That's right.
Which means that if that's your only issue, you still better vote. All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, let's talk marijuana. The folks at marijuanastock.org have already reached more than half of their funding goal for this hemp CBD investment. That's right. If you want to take advantage of this opportunity, you need to do it now because it won't last much longer. Now, if you don't know, I'm talking about the hemp plant, the good cousin to marijuana, with a much higher concentration of CBD. That means hemp gives you all the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Also, if you don't know, hemp farming is now legal in the United States, creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. Now, it's an investment opportunity for all of you, and that's where the folks at 420 Real Estate come in. Their business model is simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. As hemp continues to change the economic landscape, 420 Real Estate is allowing you to chase the American dream. The best part, you can invest in this crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200. That's right, anywhere from $200 up to $10,000. To invest, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Get in the game and get in the game now. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.